The old mining town of Helvetia was first settled in the 1880s by a man from Switzerland hoping to strike it rich. The town grew to about 300 and had a post office with stagecoach runs to Tucson. Helvetia is located in the Santa Rita Mountains, and the name means liberty. The Helvetia of yesteryear is long gone, and we're here today on a desert museum outing, exploring old mines, mountains, and learning about minerals.
You also would want to take a look at the whole mountainside in general. And since we're up here on the mountain, let's look behind us. Look at that gray peak over there. Below it, you can see it turns orange. A good place to prospect would be right at the contact between the limestone and the granite.
That's interesting.
Where granite intrudes limestone, you always have mineralization. It might not always be mineable, but you're always going to have mineralization. We're going to go back now as we go just a little bit farther to the top of this hill. I want to point out to you a very strong plant-rock type association. You can't quite see it. We need to head back.
We're headed back.
Okay, I said we were going to take a look at a very strong rock-plant association, except in the very middle there's kind of like a U shape, a V, where there's a darker green, larger bush.
Yes.
That's sandpaper bush. If you were to go out there and walk around, you would find that the sandpaper bush is growing only on the limestone. It has a very strong affinity toward limestone. If you walk out of that little pocket, you walk into granite on either side.
Interesting.
So that's something else that a person that was trying to map this area would be aware of and take advantage of.
Sandpaper bush. Really interesting leaf structure. Interesting. Thank you. Now we're going down the hill. I'm shooting in the sun. Well, we're on our own for 20 minutes. And I'll be back down in a minute. This is an interesting area. This is an old mine. Instead of it being a tunnel, they blast out the side of a hill and mined it. What I wanted to do is get in close and look at some of the structures. And this rock face. There's a pretty one up there. And the mineralogy is in all the rocks. This isn't bedrock. So it shows you how it exists in the natural state, much like it does up in the rock face there where they were mining. What do you got?
That looks like Western. That's the big hint.
That's the big hint.
That's the big hint.
Oh, yeah, there's some more there. We got a big stick of copper. Oh, this is
I'll be darned.
one we're hanging up.
That's interesting, babe. That's really interesting. Betty just picked it up and it shows you the localization. And this is iron strata with a vein of copper buried in it.
There's a great big one up there, but it's caught in the ground. It's really
All
huge.
the better. That
It's the
way
same
everyone
story.
can see it. Now the rock itself, it might be serpentine, probably. When we do our mineral identification, we'll get a better handle on what it is. I think it's something called serpentine.
I knew it wasn't mica.
Yeah, well that's good.
Yeah, and I knew it wasn't limestone, and I knew it wasn't granite. You'll never be able to see.
She thinks this is serpentine. This is a piece of polished rock
Caught in
between two fault lines.
I don't know if you can see. You probably can't see the lines.
I could sort of see them. They're fine. Hold it up more to your face. Yeah, there you go. No. God. And I think we'll walk up there and see some of the people who are walking back to our staging area. Every time we come around the corner, there's another area where there was another mining effort and evidence of a vein. Now this is pretty impressive. This is where evidently the remains of a previous carve out is, and I'm standing up on top of it. God, This is a gorgeous place. My goodness. It's a gorgeous place. This is another mined out revetment type area. Well, we're taking a lunch break. And these are close-ups of some of the adobe structures and ruins. More of the close-up of the structure of the adobe that was put together. This is fascinating. It's fascinating. These little rooms are tiny. The inside of the walls were once covered with clay. Really, voices of the past talking to you. They built a line of houses facing north and south so that they could look at the sunset off in the distance. Even then, they were interested in views. Other people have been up here in the evening making campfires. Our group's having their noon picnic. I'm inside one of the adobe wall structures, and somebody's punched a hole through it. The Toodles, Benny, Mary, Dwayne, our group. It's a good thing. Thank you so much. Where are we now?
Well, we're somewhere. I take it since this is gun site, we're probably in here somewhere.
And the little structures there. Okay. That's really interesting. And they actually had a big mill. Okay. Or something here. A smelter.
They're right here.
Okay.
What's left of these buildings?
That's how they initially looked. There's a lot more to them than what. Fascinating.
A Swiss miner. This was one of the Swiss prospector was one of the first people that was in this area. He's the one that called this area Helvetia. Helvetia is the name for Switzerland, the original name. And I don't think it looked much like Switzerland, but whatever.
He had a great imagination.
Anyway, this area had been mined off and on since the Civil War. It was in 1880 that the first kind of continued for, well, I want to say continuous for about a 20-30 year time period. Operation began. The very oldest mines that started up was in 1880, and it was the old Dick mine, and that's the next site that we're going to be going to. There was a stage line that was started up between Tucson and Vail. Why did it go to Vail? They're going, Vail's a tiny place. Well, at that time, did I say Tucson and Vail? Yes. I meant Helvetia and Vail. Vail was probably not much bigger than, was probably a little smaller than Tucson at that time. But Vail was right along, it was the closest point along the railway. And they would send wagon trains carrying ore to Vail. They'd load the ore on the train and then send it up to Globe, to the smelter. Then in 1903, they built their own smelter here, and when we get in the vans and drive out and go on the road, I could almost, if I could throw pretty far, I could throw a stone over to where the smelter was. You'll see some of the slag that's still left. The wood has all been removed. So they started their own smelter here in 1903. Then copper prices crashed. A few years later, there was a mild revival right after during World War I. And then by 1921, I think it is, they closed the post office, and pretty much everyone had left other than just a few folks. World War II, there was, again, very mild revival, not really much of anyone living here, maybe a couple people, but there was some mining going on. And that's pretty much the history of this area.
We're in the process of talking
maybe
about
since I think everyone's
identifying
pretty comfortable where
minerals
you are,
now.
we'll just kind of pass this around, and then we'll let it final residing place to be somewhere around here. So take a peek at those. And then we're also going to distribute mineral ID kits, acid,
This is our
hardness
sample
kits,
minerals.
creek. And each one of these
Thank you.
you're going to find there's
Thank you.
things to test.
That's good.
Did I remember to tell you all to bring your little papers with you?
Definitely are going
You're checking it for that. Is it bubbling?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Well, you took it out of the way.
Okay, so what we're going to do,
Okay.
and I want to, before I say anything more about the individual minerals, show you how you would use this mineral identification chart.
I think there's plenty of it. It's just the same color.
On this column, but you're really not going to know that. But I want to point out to you that I, in bold print, indicated the characteristics that are really the giveaways. For example, this first one, actinolite, which is actually pretty rare. If you go across, you'll notice the luster is fibrous. That's going to be the real giveaway on that one. The very top mineral, actinolite. You see the column that says luster, you see how fibrous I wrote in bold print?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason I put that in bold is to indicate that that's going to be the most diagnostic clue on that one. See if it meets all this other stuff. It has the right streak, the right hardness. Has it a metallic luster? Maybe the luster is one of the first things that you want to be looking at. In your samples, yours must have been very similar looking from that expression.
This is flaking off and leaving on my hand.
What's it leaving on your hand?
Parts of it, so it is a Criscola?
No, but what color is it leaving on your hand?
Rusty yellow.
Okay, it's leaving a powdered rusty yellow.
You're right.
Well, the lap isn't big enough. I could go.
Betty thinks she's got a rock that's an epidote.
Because a lot of times you might have 2 or 3 minerals in one hand specimen.
What do you get?
Okay,
Can't really see it.
let's see.
Well, the iron's there, right?
Just do it hard.
Okay, so now it's colorless gray.
Okay, okay, so it fits that. Let's check.
Hardness is 1 to 2.
Hardness 6 to 7.
It has kind of a glassy luster.
okay.
It's very hard. I would check the hardness on it. And if it meets that hardness criteria, then I would say yes. And and if you want to, I made this a little column on the far left. You can check off. I found it. You don't have
So Betty has found a piece of rock that's called epidote.
If it was white, we wouldn't say it.
And the other thing is that it. It's pulling it off with a nail. And why is here? You try it. Coating is a long fracture, which is just what that
Yeah. We have a kit that's got different materials in it that you test hardness by scratching or being scratched.
Okay, now, what's this dark stuff? It doesn't, I don't think it is.
How hard was that? Wait, that's what this is.
Pyrolusite.
Pyrolusite. It's a manganese ore. Manganese is always really black. Iron and magnesium combined make kind of an olive green to a forest green. But manganese, not magnesium, but manganese is black.
High grade oil.
Beautiful. Now, what did you call this again? Pyrolusite.
Pyrolusite.
Second from the bottom one.
Don't get thrown off.
Well, we're
I showed
completing
you
our
shots in the class there. This is
mineral
like-
identification.
You know,
And it's very educational,
usually.
very rich experience.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
Very rich experience. Sonia is very knowledgeable and easy to listen to.
What's the name of this one?
this one is the old Dick.
This is the old Dick mine.
So now, where we were in the ruins was Helvetia.
This whole area is called the Helvetia Mining
The
District.
mines have 50 different names.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I always assumed that was the Helvetia mine.
Well, yeah. And notice when there's a change. And that has to do with where we'll see the minerals again.
That's gorgeous up
specifically
there.
looked at a map and found out.
Now we're headed up to the old Dick Mine. We're ways farther into the Santa Ritas, and wow, this is a fantastic view. Dwayne's coming up. Keep out. It's probably the mouth of an old mine entrance. It's been covered over, and we're at this old Dick Mine, and our folks are doing their identification. We're not going to collect nearly as much this time. God, that's pretty. Yeah, the lighting is not the best, but it's not bad. This shows a whole different stratification material.
That's got to be
There's one
hematite.
mineral that we did not find down there, that some people already discovered up there. We're going to find more of it down here. It's a copper mineral. I'm not going to disclose any more. Let's see, we've also found some magnetite. Jim was just asking me, he picked up a rock. It looks sort of like a plant. He asked, is this a fossil? And I said, no. Now, a lot of times when you find something you think might be a fossil, it's really hard to say. And often you ask the person that question, they say, well, could be. But because this is the wrong rock type, because we're in an area where there was, if this came out of the limestone, then I wouldn't say no. I'd say, oh, well, you know, it doesn't look like it to me, but it could be.
Sediment.
But because limestone is sedimentary. But because this is something that clearly it's a vein deposit, you would not have a fossil in a vein deposit.
You know, if you come here after a big storm, you probably have a whole bunch more uncovered.
Yes, just like if waves, you know, you get new seashells.
Well, you have to let it dry out a couple days.
Oh, I like that.
Now what it is now,
Dude, that's the same as what I was looking at.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, you got a piece of it
Right,
right there.
right there. And I thought it was
I was
the,
playing with it.
let's do
Broken
the
through.
acid.
It's relatively hard.
Ornite's gonna be like bluish, purplish, and metallic. It's definitely gonna be like a blue purple. Yeah, okay, you know, it's still basically a limestone.
Yep.
Why is it so black? There's, you know, it might be like impregnated with manganese.
Just a minute.
That pyrolusite,
oh,
but it's still basically limestone.
Yeah, this is,
Downhill at least.
every place is
So they are slightly.
fascinating. First discovery, first time, first experience.
Because they're
This
decomposing.
area's been blasted out, and
They've been altered.
and all the rubble
They're not
has come down here, actually,
one.
up in that area.
Aha.
Been blasted out.
Fibrous.
It's come down this way.
Scratch it. Green for
One of our rock people is off in the distance, looking over the landscape.
So dark.
Oh, I'm really impressed with how diligent you guys are.
So
You're,
The fun.
yeah, exactly. It's wonderful.
So that might
What I
be.
did, I had to get right down in here on this piece here,
I see what you did.
okay? And it did scratch the edges of it. So that's got to be at least a 5.
So that's, it might be dactylite
in
though.
limestone.
That's number one.
Fluids traveling.
Well, we're in the shadows, but this is a rather rich area. A lot of material here. Very neat place to explore.
We had a very heavy iron mineral, and someone else found a very light iron mineral. And, as a matter of fact, those were, let's see, Jim, you had the heavy iron mineral that ended up being magnetite.
And Chuck had the,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I had the,
Chuck had the very
Heb-
light iron mineral, which is hematite. The light iron mineral is this one, basically this stuff here. It's an oxide. Oxides tend to be lighter in weight than sulfides. Oxides contain oxygen sulfides contain sulfur. Have you guys heard about such and, oxide sulfides? This is such and such oxide. This is such and such sulfide. Also, when we were at the Asarco Mineral Discovery Center, you had a good chance to look at the chalcopyrite and the boronite, those that are both sometimes called peacock ore. Those are also sulfides. Those are also metallic. They're copper sulfides. Okay, then some other some copper oxides, and in particular they're copper carbonates. The malachite, the azurite, the chrysocolla. They're both oxides and carbonates. They contain carbon and oxygen. But I'm pointing this out just so in your mind you can kind of start, you've learned all these names and you've seen all these different things, but so you can kind of start categorizing and making sense of things. The copper oxides were all the bright colored yet kind of earthy colored minerals. The copper sulfides are the metallic, heavier minerals, the ones that had iridescence to them. In the mid-tertiary, about 30 million years ago, there was a rejuvenation and there was a secondary concentration of the copper. So during the mid-tertiary, throughout western Mexico and western North America, there was a swarm of plutons and volcanic activity that was kind of punching little holes all through the crust in this area. And there was something about the chemistry of that, of that molten rock that was coming up through the crust at that time that was ideal for creating these copper deposits. It is probably pretty similar in chemistry to what's going on in Chile and in Peru, because they also have very high-grade porphyry copper.
Well, we're headed out.
Well, some of the mesquite.
It's about 3 o'clock.
Pony baby son.
Yeah, that's
Not even in sight, so you're not holding anybody
Oh,
up.
look at the flowers.
it's gorgeous.
So passionate.
That's just a pretty mountain up there. God, that's pretty.
Big chunk of granite.
That is really gorgeous. Well, so we visited the old Dick mine. We're back at the truck. It's about 10 after 3. What a neat day, January the 11th, 2001.